just ask everybody who's done it in the room to raise your hand so you can see the people that have been a part of it. So it's really a program geared more towards young fathers with kids. It's a longer program, but you're meeting once a month. You have a small group of guys that you kind of step through life with, and it gives you an opportunity to grow deeper in your faith and also to really create a group of guys that you can depend on. Our group, my group, we did it back in 2018. We still meet monthly, if not more often than that. So I cannot recommend that enough. That is, if you are in that demographic and it sounds like something you're interested in, please come find one of us afterwards. We'd love to tell you more about it. Discover DUMC, that is it's kind of a refresher on what it means to be Methodist. We're going to do that on Sunday, October 20th. That's in room 245. You can see any of us up here too. We'll be happy to get you some more information on that. And then Eric is here. There's Eric over there. All right. So Eric does a similar type of program to this on Friday mornings. It's a little bit later. It's 7:30 is when it starts. So for those of you that need the extra 30 minutes, he's accommodating you that way. I have no idea on how good the jokes are on his thing on Friday mornings. Not very good either. All right, good. We're keeping the brand, keeping it consistent. But it's the same type of thing. So there's no RSVP necessary, but it is in the young adult suite, which again, if anybody has any questions, we can get you pointed in the right direction. We'd love just to find a way to get you plugged in. If you cannot see already, there's a lot of opportunities, and we'd love to get you guys more engaged if you're interested. I think that's it for our announcements this morning. Correct? Yeah. All right, David, hand it over to you, sir.
It is good to see all of you here this morning. It's a great day to be here. So happy that you have found your way to us this day around the tables. Hope you get to know the guys that are with you around the table. And so we look forward to further involvement with you as we go forward. So let us now join in this word of prayer. Oh God, we do thank you for your presence with us, for the opportunities that we have that lay before us this day that you have called us to do. May we be attentive to your call upon our lives, that we would be opening our hearts and minds to the ways that you would speak to us, that you would provide for us a witness opportunity this day, that we could tell folks about who you are in our lives and all that you mean to us. So we ask that you bless this meal that we have received this day, that you would continue to enliven us and strengthen us as we walk forward, and that we be faithful to your call upon our lives, both this day and forevermore. Amen.
This thing. Okay. We're thrilled to have Coach Nash today. Coach Nash joined Dunwoody High School football program in 2015. By the way, you need to fact check me. I don't know if I've got all this right. Needless to say, the program was running at fumes at that time. Immediately, community support increased dramatically, as well as interest in the program. Last year, he led the Wildcats to an 8-4 overall record. 8-3. A 4-2 record in Region 4.
Yes, sir.
Okay, beautiful. And team's first playoff appearance since 2009. There it is. By the way, good win Friday night. I'm sure you'll tell us about that. He attributes much of his success to building a strong feeder program at the elementary and middle school levels. He's been coaching 21 years and teaching 9 years, taught special ed, phys ed, and now he's teaching, well, not teaching finance.
Home ec.
Home ec. That's a beautiful thing. Since coming to Dunwoody High School, Coach Nash has been instrumental in improving the football facilities along with Steve Fortenberry's help and a bunch of generosity from a bunch of really nice people in Dunwoody. He's renovated the field with beautiful grass, track storage area, a plaza area for concessions, and they're currently putting up a neighbor-friendly lighting on the field. It's already up.
We got lights up. They've been up for a while.
Yeah, they look good. I walked the dog that way. Football accomplishments aside, Coach Nash cares for his players and is considered by Dunwoody football family as a mentor to 50 young men every year. Coach encourages students to participate, to get involved, to embrace school most of all, and Coach teaches his kids to be positive, respectful young men. I want to recognize one of Coach Nash's assistant coaches, Ryan Gentry. Raise your hand, Ryan. Ryan's here today. Ryan grew up in this church, and I can vouch for this kid's character right here. So I hope that his entire staff is as cool as Ryan Gentry. Great human being. We applaud you for your service, Coach, and y'all help me welcome Coach Nash.
All right, let me see if I can figure this thing out again.
Is that good?
I'm not used to a microphone. I had to bring my drink up here too, just because my voice isn't going very well. This time of year, I've been yelling a lot. I lose my voice a little bit. I also walk around a little bit. I hope that's okay. I'm not real big on lectern. First, I want to say thanks for having me. I also want to recognize one person that's in the room. Where you at? Tyler Wright. Stand up, boy. This is one of my former players, and I'm blessed and really privileged and very happy to see him show up this morning. One of my favorite kids I've ever had. Played for us, what, 5 years ago? 5 or 6?
5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years ago. He holds the record in DeKalb County for the most catches, most receptions in a single football season. So I love having him here. On top of that, he's a fine young man. So next thing I want to do, I want to recognize Pastor Phil. Where you at, Pastor Phil? Most people don't know this, but Phil was mine and Tracy's, my wife's pastor when we got married. And he was really important to us. And as we were a young couple, trying to figure out how to be married, and just a quick story about Phil. My youngest daughter was born with some heart problems and had to have open heart surgery, and she brought her out here. Well, she was supposed to not have it for a year, but it got so bad so fast that they took her in and did it in 11 weeks. And I remember sitting at Eggleston, and we didn't even call Phil. I don't know how Phil knew, but I was sitting in the waiting room when they took Gracie back, and the first person that walked in was Phil. And Phil sat with me for hours and hours and hours, and was just super important to me in my life. And I quit going to church for a while when Phil got moved. I was brokenhearted. So I want everybody to know that Dunwoody is so blessed to have Phil. My mom and dad still talk about Phil Schrader every day. So you're really blessed to have him. And Phil, thank you guys for having me here today. When they asked me to speak, I honestly didn't ask for many questions, and I don't take good notes. And so I talked to Paul this morning and asked him, what do you want me to talk about, and how long do you want me to talk? And that's just kind of the way I do things. I don't have a big speech written up or anything. And he asked me to make my faith story is always good, and kind of give me your why on why you do what you do and what you do and how you do it. And so that's what I'm gonna do. My faith story is I decided to give my life to Christ, and I became saved in 1989. I was a sophomore in high school at an FCA meeting. And we had this little FCA Bible that we used. It was a book, but it was our FCA Bible, and had a picture of a little kid and a coach walking on it. And we called it, I don't know why, but Jamie Basso was our coach that led FCA. He was also one of my football coaches. He was a baseball coach. And he named the little guy on the front Chucky. So we called it the Chucky Bible. But I remember sitting in a house across from Shiloh High School with Mike Matuzak, Chad Scott, Jamie Sisk, and Coach Basso, and all 4 of us were led to Christ by Coach Basso. And so I guess that at an early age just showed me how important a coach was. I didn't realize it at the time. I mean, I'll be honest. I didn't realize how important my coaches were at the time. I didn't realize how fortunate I was to have them. But it kind of leads you into the why of what I do. When I left high school in 1992, I went to Shiloh High School. And I went and played football at Mars Hill College in North Carolina, a little tiny Baptist college up above Asheville, North Carolina. When I tell you it was the most miserable experience I've ever had in my life, it was miserable. I quit after the first season, after the first semester. I came home, told my mom and dad, I'm not going back to school. I'm just going to run a print press the rest of my life. But that was in the print business. I'm just going to work for you. And, they weren't happy, but they let me do it. And, for a while, I told them later on in life, I was mad because they let me quit. And, because I always wanted to be a football coach. I always wanted to be a teacher. But I was so miserable that we had a terrible year. We went 0-12. I should have never been playing, but I was the fourth string linebacker, but all the guys in front of me got hurt. So now I was playing and I was terrible. When I got home, I hated football so bad because of this experience. I wouldn't even watch it on TV. I didn't want anything to do with it. After that first year running that print press, and every day I come home and have that ink in my fingernails, and after that first year, Coach Jordan, who was my head coach in high school, and just to tell you what he means to me, my oldest daughter's named Jordan. She's named after my head coach. He called me on the phone one day and said, "Michael, I need your help." I said, "What do you need?" He said, "Well, we don't have enough coaches for our 8th grade group, and I need you to come help us. We got to get some guys to come help." And I said, "Okay." The only guy who said yes to was Coach Jordan. And I did. And the next year, and I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. And I still kept running that print press, and I worked as a community coach. The next year, he moved me up to 9th grade. Next year, moved me up to 10th grade. Next year, moved me up to 11th grade. And then he retired and went down to South Georgia. But later on in life, I realized he didn't need my help. He didn't need my help for anything. He was helping me. And I didn't realize it, like I said, for a long time. Didn't realize that he could have got anybody to coach. He saw that I was struggling and didn't know where I was going. And so he came back and asked me to help in his way to get me on track to where I needed to be. And we did that, and I did that, and then, just following along in my life. I still didn't go back to school, but I wanted to. That's when I met Tracy. It's a crazy story about my wife. She was a paraprofessional in a self-contained emotional behavior disorders class at Shiloh High School. Does anybody know what that means? That's self-contained DVD. The way they described it to me was, if you took all the kids on a field trip and you went down to the MARTA, the E kids, emotional disorder, you got to watch them because they'll jump off the front of the train. The B kids, you had to watch them because they push somebody off the front of the train. So, and in education's infinite wisdom, let's put those kids together in a small room. But anyway, I was gonna start my track. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna get my degree and I'm gonna start teaching. So I applied for a job as a paraprofessional at Shiloh High School, and it just so happened my wife was leaving Shiloh High School at the time, coming to Dunwoody to be a nanny for 2 doctors over on Spalding Drive, and that's how we met. I took her job. Be honest, it was about 4 months later we got married. We decided to get married. I've got a very addictive personality. If I decide to do something, I'm gonna do it. And it was great because we were gonna get married. I was gonna go back to school. We had it all set up. I was gonna go to West Georgia. I was gonna be able to coach at West Georgia. We were gonna live in Smyrna. She's still gonna work out here. And 1 month into our marriage, she was pregnant. So I couldn't go back to school. I'm still running that print press. We kept doing it, and about 4 years passed, 5 years passed. And my second child comes along, which was fine because we were in good shape at the time. I could still go back to school. We would be okay. But then, like I said, Gracie's sick and I'm self-employed at the time. So I've got this crazy insurance policy where I pay 60% and they pay 40%. Now I'm looking at $1 million worth of medical bills. Can't go back to school again. 2005, the day Hurricane Katrina hit. Now by this time, guys, I had started a construction business. I'm telling you, my life's weird. I've done a million things. I've been a teacher at a prison. I've been a prison guard. I've done a ton of different stuff. But we started construction business in 2005. Most of you guys know that was the boom down there in Panama City in 38. So we picked up, and again, I got an addictive personality. And had a guy here named Brad Williams, Virgil Williams' son. I was building homes for him. And he asked me if I wanted to go down to Panama City and build a few homes. And I said, well, let me go down there and look at them. Me and my mom went down there, and Tracy was here. And we were sitting at Schooners on Sunday. We're supposed to come back on Sunday. And I had gone around and talked to all these guys and saw how much money these guys were making framing houses. So I'm sitting at Schooners and I just told Mom, I said, I'm not going home. I'm going to call Tracy. So I called Tracy. And this, again, guys, my wife is the salt of the earth. She's the best human being overlooked. Her and my daughter are on the sidelines with me every Friday night. She does the water. She's the water girl. She does all the laundry. She's never not done anything we needed. But I called her crazy. and said, listen, I'm not coming home. Here's what you need to do. You need to call my Aunt Georgia. She's a real estate agent. Tell her to list the house, sell the house, have a garage sale. Anything you don't sell, just give it goodwill and y'all come down here. I'm not coming home. She said, no. She said, you can stay. I'm staying here. The girls need to finish this semester at school where they're at. So we went through that. They were going to finish the year, and about Christmas time, I couldn't do it anymore. Again, this was the day Katrina hit, so it was August. About Christmas time hit, I was going back and forth, and I told her, I said, look, either y'all come down here or I'm coming home. I can't do this. I can't live by myself. My daughters are up here. And so she, again, graciously moved down there. Long story short, we worked through all that, through that boom and then the bust. And then in 2010, I moved back up. And on the way home, I told her, listen, I said, we paid off all those medical bills. We don't have a ton of money saved, but we got enough that I think I can go to school and I can finish. She said, okay, cool. Are you gonna coach again? And I said, I'm not gonna coach until I'm done with school. I gotta put my foot down. I gotta bear down. I gotta get done with school. And about the time I said that, my best friend Ed Shaddix called. Some of you may know him. He was the principal at North Gwinnett at the time. He was a guy that started his coaching career with me, but we also grew up together. He was the principal at North Gwinnett and called and says, hey, I need you to come over here and help out. If you're coming home, I need you to come over here and coach football. Again, Charlie Jordan, Ed Shaddix, two guys I'm not going to say no to. So I told him, I said, no problem. I'll do it, but only if you give me a job where I don't have to work and I can go to school during the day. Sure enough, Ed Shaddix hires me as the parking lot guy and gives me the trailer, gives me one of those trailers. He said, you just work in here all day. Don't worry about the parking lot. So I went back to school, went to school online, and I finished my degree in 19 months and started teaching. I got a job at Shiloh High School. I was there for 3 years and then moved back. And then that's when the Dunwoody job came open. And just I guess a fun little fact about that. The Dunwoody job was the first job I ever applied for and the first job I ever had to have an interview on. I had never applied for a job. Any job just kind of came my way. Or somebody came and got me, or I knew somebody. I'd never had an interview. I didn't even own a suit, so I had to go buy a suit for the interview. And then I walk in to the interview and everything's fine. I'm talking to Tom McFerrin and Steve Forberry was in the room and Channing was in the room and everything was going great. And then they bring in the ringer for the football questions. And little T. McFerrin, I don't know how many of y'all know who he is. T. McFerrin is probably one of the top 3 winningest football coaches in the history of the state of Georgia. He's the only guy that's won a state championship in I think 3 different schools. He's a legend. And he walks in and starts drawing stuff on the board. And I'm thinking, man, I'm done. I am cooked. Now, I didn't get this job. I finished second. They hired another guy named Nick Bach. Nick Bach quit inside of 2 weeks, and Tom McFerrin called me, and I was actually throwing BP on the mound at Shiloh when he called and offered me the job. And I told him I wasn't sure I wanted it. I said, number one, I don't want to be anybody's second choice, but number 2, I don't know if I want to work for the DeKalb County Schools. Tom told me something that rings true to this day. He said, if you come here, you're not working for DeKalb County, you work for Dunwoody. So we do things different. And that shows Dunwoody's a special place. It's a special place. I've never been anywhere like it. I'm fortunate to have been here 10 years. My wife's my 14th year teaching. But I came in after that, and I remember the first day. Well, we walked in, I think Tyler Ike was probably in the room. We had a football interest meeting. We're 17 kids. 17 kids that first day when I showed up. And number one, I thought, well, now I know why Nick Bach quit. I think Tyler might have been one of the biggest ones. But I went home, and again, my wife, I went home and I told her, I said, I think I messed up. Because I've been offered the Shiloh head coaching job too. I said, I think I messed up. I think I want to back out of this. My wife said something to me that I'll never forget. She said, if you do that, then you're not the man you claim to be, and you're not representing what you teach. And so I went back, we went hard to work. We got up to about 60 guys that first year, right, Tyler? I mean, we were pulling guys out of the hall on Monday, they were playing on Friday. That's honest God truth, isn't it? Tyler, I found Stevie D on Monday, Stevie D Gebhardt, God bless his soul, passed away a couple of years ago, but I found Stevie D on Monday and we played North Springs on Friday. We got our tails whooped, but no kidding, Stevie D was calling the defense after 4 days. So, but through hard work from my coaches and coaching staff, the community, now we're filling up over 100 kids every year. It's grown into a huge program. It's gone from when I got there, it was a $28,000 budget. We didn't have any grass. Now we got turf fields and we're somewhere in the neighborhood of a $200,000 budget that we're running every year. These kids get great stuff. We're able to provide protein shakes for them every morning after workouts and tons of meals, and we take trips and we go camping. And I tell y'all that to tell you this, get back to it. I know I'm long-winded, but that's my why. I am where I am because of a few things. One, because of my faith in Jesus Christ. I know he helps me every day. And when you're a head football coach, and I'm just telling you, and Ryan, this is for you. When you become a head football coach, everything changes. You didn't change, but everything changes. Those kids that love Ryan, they come to Ryan when they got a problem. I was that guy. As soon as I became the head coach, I'm not that guy anymore. I don't know why. I guess it's the stigma, but it's lonely and you're on an island about all the time. And everybody thinks they got a better way to do it, but you got to stick to what you do and you got to be yourself. And you got to do it the way you want to do it, because at the end of the day, I tell the guys this all the time, y'all ain't getting fired, I'm getting fired. So if I'm gonna get fired, I'm gonna get fired doing what I believe. But when you are on an island, and I find myself, and guys, I'm not, believe me, I'm not as good a person as everybody thinks I am. You find yourself praying a lot, sitting to yourself, thinking a lot, trying to figure out what God's plan is for you. And I think and this is one of my faults, and I know I heard this in a sermon somewhere, and it probably was Phil. But I think my biggest downfall is I feel like I'm only talking to God, I'm only praying when things are bad. I feel like I'm only calling on him when things are bad, because I'm trying to find a way to help myself in my own selfish way. And a lot of times when things are going great, I don't think about God. And that's something that I'm trying to do better on. I don't go back and give thanks as much as I should, instead of going back and asking. So that's kind of my faith story. But the other part of it is I asked a buddy of mine that lives here in Dunwoody, I'm not going to say his name, he'd kill me. He played for a legendary football coach. Charlie Jordan wasn't a legendary football coach to anybody but the kids he coached. He was perennially around 4 and 6, but he was an incredible human being, an incredible man. He taught us how to be good fathers, sons, and husbands. And something he used to say every year, the first interview that he did for the newspaper every year, they'd ask what kind of team you're going to have. And I love it. And I say it sometimes, and sometimes I'm scared to say it because it's a cliche. He says, I don't know. Ask me in 20 years. Let's see what kind of fathers and husbands they become. Then I'll know what kind of team I had. And I've said that before too. And I told Tyler and them that when they were here, I know. And that's a testament that I got a young man here at 7 o'clock in the morning that wanted to get up and come see me. That tells me that we had a great team that year. We might only go 2-8 or 3-7, but that tells me we had a great team. But I asked this guy, my friend that played for this legendary coach, because he was always talking about it, always talking about it. And it made me mad, because I'm like, the coach wasn't no better than my coach. He used to have better players. But I asked him one day, we were sitting around at the lake, and I said, let me ask you a question, man. You talk about this guy all the time, but it's always just about football. What's your personal relationship like with this guy? And man, it crushed him. And we've talked about it a few times, because his answer was, I don't think he even knew my name. I said, you started for him for 4 years, you don't think he knew his name? Man, it's sad. You didn't have a real good football coach. Because every time I have something in my life that I don't know what to do, I do 2 things or 3 things. I ask my wife, I ask God, and I call Charlie Jordan. And that is my why. I want to be that guy, and I don't ever want to be the guy that I'm talking about that didn't have a personal relationship with this player. So as far as our program goes and what it means and what we do, number 1, we have a slogan, and it's family, but that's an acronym. It's forget about me, I love you. That's what we're trying to teach. We're trying to teach servant leadership. Forget about yourself, do it for somebody else. And again, this is what I think makes our program special. When I got the call and was asked if I wanted to come talk, I had no idea where we were going to talk. But I did call a couple of my players, a couple of my older players, and I said, what did our program mean to you? And it was cool, because kind of gave me some self-reflection too, like, man, what, he just called me and asked me to speak, and I don't know what to speak about. Maybe I'm going down the wrong path here. But call Walt Anders, Tyler's good buddy. I would call Tyler, Tyler don't answer his phone ever. And I asked him, and his answer was, anybody ever heard The Huddle by Bill Curry? Yes. His answer was very similar to that. It was very similar to something Dabo Swinney would say. Dabo Swinney and Bill Curry are two of my favorites, two guys I look up to. We said, Coach, I learned how to be around other people that are not like me. He said, I learned how to be around other people that are not like me. And we're all different, but it didn't matter because we were all together and we were all fighting for the same goal. You know, Bill Curry talks about that when you get in that huddle, it's the magical power of the huddle. You know, you got white people, black people, Hispanic people, you got Christians, you got Jews, you got atheists, you got big, fat, short, tall, but it doesn't matter. Because when we all start sweating, it all smells the same. When everybody bleeds, they bleed the same, but nobody thinks about it. And you got one common goal. I thought that was special to hear from Walt, and also talked to Jackson Moore. And I loved what he said. He said, I learned about delayed gratification. He said, I learned about delayed gratification. You know, we practice 11 months out of the year. My guys get December off. That's it. We're done in November. We start back in January. And this is what's special about football compared to any other sport. We practice for 11 months out of the year, and you're guaranteed 10 games. I was looking at our volleyball schedule the other day. They got 38 games. 38. Softball's got 30 games, 25 games, something like that. Baseball, 25, 30 games. Football, we practice year-round, Monday through Thursdays at 6:30 a.m. in January, February, March, April, May, June, all through the summer, and you get 10 times. And you might not even play. Jackson Moore was a kicker. But he said, I learned about delayed gratification. I learned that I'm not going to get paid on Friday just because I work Monday through Thursday. It may be 10 months from now when I get paid. And I think it's what was special about those earlier teams before 3 years ago is when we finally started winning. But I say it all the time, it was built on the backs of Tyler and Walt, Stevie D, those guys. They're the ones that did it. They laid the foundation. But I think that's what's special about those teams. They did it, and they were going 2-8, 3-7. They still did it. So it just tells me I know something was special about that, about what we did. And I finally came across one final thing here that I think about a lot. There's a lady named Dorothy Farner. She was in the English department in Brooklyn, New York. And she said a few years ago, she said, football may be the best taught subject in American high schools because it's the only subject we haven't made easy. And I think about that a lot. And it, you know, and Ryan will tell you, kids these days are different. You know, when I was growing up, you guys were growing up, if your coach told you to do it, you did it. Most of the time you did it out of fear. One of the lessons I learned from Charlie was we didn't do it out of fear, we did it out of love for him, but we still did it. These days it's a little bit different. There's all kinds of times when I'm faced with a choice and what do? You know, I don't want to lose this kid. I don't want him to quit, but I think back to that. You know, everything else is easy. Let's don't make football easy. So to close up, that's why we do what we do. And I look back on my life and I've had some special people in it, and coaches made a difference. And I think coaches make a huge difference in kids' life. I'm not the best teacher in the world in that classroom, I can promise you. I've taught 9 different subjects. I do it for a reason. One is so that I can get guys in the buildings. For instance, if Tyler decides he wants to be a teacher and he majored in home ec and I'm teaching home ec, I'll tell the principal, I'll take the next job up and I'll go get certified, but only if you hire Tyler. Now you get 2 kinds of teachers in a building. You get teachers that teach because they love the subject. And you get teachers who teach because they love kids. I don't care what I'm teaching. I just like being around kids. And I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. And again, like I said, I didn't go back to school for 19 years. And something else I told Tyler and every player that's ever played for me. I wish going back in one way that I'd gone ahead and finished school. Because for 19 years, I did what I had to do to survive. I swung a hammer. I dug ditch, I did everything in the world to pay to take care of my kids and my wife because I had to. And now I get to do what I want to every day. Now, having said that, I'm also glad because it made me who I am. It makes me appreciate what I have. So again, I appreciate you guys having me. I'm gonna open it up. Anybody got any questions? Feel free. I'm an open book. Might not like to answer, but I'll answer.
Yeah, so the FCA program at Dunwoody
sir.
High School is pretty
Huge.
robust, right?
Huge.
Yeah, tell us more about that.
Our FCA meets every Friday in the auditorium. I'll be honest, the first time I ever went, I was amazed. I mean, it was amazing.
For the folks online.
Yes, they asked about the FCA program at Dunwoody High School. Steve Fortenberry runs it. There's nothing Steve Fortenberry does. It's not first class and it's not the best, period. I'll be honest with you. I'm a little jealous of him. But it is a huge program. They get speakers coming in from all over the place. The biggest thing he does is that he makes it fun for those kids. I mean, you walk that auditorium and it's full, you know, but he'll have the kids lead it. He does a great job of having the kids lead it. They have Chick-fil-A biscuits for anybody who wants to come. And I love it. You know, again, Steve's better than I am, and I'm not that great a person. But I remember when I was in the FCA meeting one time and I was seeing kids that would come in there, they were talking, they weren't listening, they weren't doing anything. All they did was they wouldn't come in there and get a little ticket, so they get a biscuit. I told Steve, I said, we need to stop that. We need to stop that. They can't do that. And Steve said, why? He said, all we'll do is get them here. You know, maybe they're not paying attention, but maybe one day somebody's gonna say something that catches them, so that's okay. Anybody got anything else?
I got my own microphone, Andy. Coach, you got 2 daughters, right?
Yes, sir.
How is it being a football coach and that with 2 daughters? Cause I imagine they're athletes as well. So do you have some dad responsibilities there as well?
I'm blessed, man. And Ryan can attest to this. You're right. I have 2 daughters and there were times when it was tough growing up because there were some things I missed. Yeah, I didn't get to go to my daughter's senior night. My oldest daughter went to a different school. Her senior night was the same night as one of our games, but I tell these guys all the time, you take care of your family first. If you gotta miss practice, you gotta miss whatever, you go. Great, coming up with 2 daughters was funny. It was great because I was a football coach. Guys, I've coached everything. I was a girls' head soccer coach for 2 years, which was a nightmare. We were the worst of Shiloh High School. We didn't have one girl that had ever played soccer before. We went 1-19. It was horrible. I've been a head baseball coach. I've coached wrestling. I was the head lacrosse coach here for a long time. I'm not anymore. But there was, because of those things that I did, that meant I didn't have to coach them. Because the hardest coaching job I've ever done was coaching 5- and 6-year-old Pink Hurricane soccer in Panama City Beach, Florida. Because we had 6 kids, there's 5 on the field at a time. So one was always on break, but they always wanted to be on the break. And I remember one time a hot air balloon came over. We had to cancel the game. That's no lie. So I didn't have to coach it. Now I will say this, 2 things. One, they call it the coach's curse that coaches have daughters. I think it's the coach's blessing because I know this is cheesy, guys, but I never had any sons, but I had 100 sons every year. And again, Tyler Ice shows up 6 years later. You know, I go down to Auburn and Walt Anders always wants to come over to the tailgate. Jackson Moore wants to come over to the tailgate. And those kids still call me. Guys I coached in 2015 or 2010, I still talk to every day. So I always had sons, but I didn't have the problems of sons. True story. When Tracy got pregnant with Gracie, Tracy wanted a boy bad. She cried when she found out it was a girl, and I was thrilled. I didn't want to. I will say this too, just because I can. My oldest is going to have a baby in November, so I'm going to be a grandfather. Yeah. And it is a girl. So that's all we do in the next one. What else we got? You can ask anything. You got football questions? You can ask whatever you want.
Coach, just a question about how you were talking about how, the men that you coach have changed over the years. How do you speak to them? How do you have them hear you now versus maybe 10 years ago? Is there a big difference?
the question was how do I coach now versus how I coached then? Is there a big difference? Well, yes and no. Number one, you got to figure out what motivates a kid before you coach him. Like Tyler couldn't be coached the same as somebody else, or this guy didn't respond to what this guy did. And you got to know that. You can't. And everybody says I coach them all the same. That's a lie. And if you do, you're not a very good coach, because it just is what it is. Me, I look at my kids, my daughters, and you all know this. I didn't treat them the same growing up because I knew what motivated them. Gracie didn't want to be embarrassed. That's all it was. Didn't matter. She just didn't want to say. We're in public. She did something wrong. All I had to do was look at her like this right here. She said, "Oh man, he's fixing to embarrass me." She stopped. Jordan didn't like physical pain, so she got spanked with the cheese little. Gracie didn't care. It didn't bother Gracie as long as it's in the privacy of a room where nobody saw it. She didn't care. And the kids are the same too. Back when I was playing, when you guys were playing, when I first started coaching, even again, it didn't matter. There was no why do I need to do this? Why do I need to do this? It was just, he told me to do it, I'm gonna do it. And now these different kids are smarter, number one. I don't think they're, and people always talk about kids, this generation, whatever, guys, that's not true. Kids are kids. Kids don't know anything until you teach them. So if we got a problem with this generation, it was the generation before them that made them. That's our fault. And for the most part, I know there's some outliers, but on our team, if we got a certain behavior, it's because we as coaches are allowing it, tolerating it, or encouraging it. So I would say there's a difference, and you do, but I think the biggest difference is, and I think it's this generation, but it may be just this area. We got to be careful. There's a lot of opportunities for these kids in Dunwoody. These are very fortunate kids, and they can do anything. So if they're not having fun playing football, they're not going to do it. They can find something else or go to Europe in the summer and all that other stuff, so you have to balance it. What I would say though is that I think every coach has their own coaching style. And I think the important part is that you're just authentic to your own coaching style. I'm a yeller, and I yell. I don't yell all the time, but I do. Our offense coordinator yells all the time, but that's just coaching style. I do think sometimes kids are like, "Yeah, he's just yelling again," but Ryan doesn't yell, and Ryan's not a yeller. So if Ryan comes out there and tries to pretend because he thinks he needs to, the kids will see it, and I think that's an important thing. As long as you're coaching with your coaching style, the kids take it, But kids are smart. They know when you're faking.
So this is crazy, but NIL has messed up college football.
Mm.
Do you see a day in 20 years when high school kids are involved in something crazy like that?
It already is.
Is that right?
GHSA approved NIL this year. It's a little different because of the rules. Like the rules of it are like a kid can take an NIL deal, take NIL money or whatever, but it can't have anything to do with the school. So if somebody want to offer me an NIL deal, that's fine. They can. Mike Nash likes NFA cheeseburgers, but I can have nothing about Dunwoody on it. I can't have a Dunwoody shirt on. It can't say Mike Nash, Dunwoody football coach. It can't be taking a picture on school property. So it's kind of hard, But honestly, what's hurting football right now is all the it's NIL, transfer portal, but mainly it's all the extra years these guys are getting in college. Like the kid playing his 8th year of college right now at Sanford. And because of that, he's taking a scholarship away from one of my kids. From one of our high schools. I mean, we got 4 or 5 kids this year that ought to be playing college football, and I can't get college to look at them. Because they're like, well, I only got this many scholarships and I'm gonna go to transfer portal. So I wonder at what point that's gonna run out, because kids can only transfer so many times before they're out eligible. But I think the biggest things colleges gotta do, they gotta stop with these extra years. You got a COVID year, you got a red shirt year, you got a gray shirt year. You get another year if you transfer. You get another year if your head coach quits. I mean, it's like literally, like I said, I got a kid playing Sanford in his 8th year.
This was a weekend of upsets.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any comments on those upsets? And could you tell us about a time either your biggest upset of someone else or someone else's biggest upset of you?
All right, so one, I would say, and we try to tell the kids this all the time. We got Woodward this week. Woodward's supposed to be really good. Told the kids on Monday, I said, you can beat anybody. I mean, we can beat anybody on our schedule, but they can beat us too. It's a difference in this year and last year. Our schedule's a lot tougher. I guess my biggest upset was we didn't actually win, but when I was a sophomore, we were terrible. Clark Central played for a state championship that year, and they beat us 7-3 and scored on the last play of the game. And that was kind of the biggest one I was ever really involved in. Other than in 2001, I was fortunate enough to coach David Pollitt in high school, at Shiloh High School. In 2001, in the playoffs, we upset Southwest DeKalb, who was like number 6 in the nation, which was a huge one. And then I would say this year, honestly, Tri-Cities, ain't no way we should have lost Tri-Cities. I was telling them a minute ago, and that one's on me, and I got to live with that one because I probably should have kicked the field goal in the first quarter when I had a chance, and I went for it. And we didn't make it. We ended up getting 22-21. So that's hard, but again, that's why football is so awesome. And I believe you learn more and you get better when you lose than you do when you win. It's kind of like I was talking about earlier, I find myself only praying to God when I'm hurting. It's kind of the same. When we didn't win, we come to work a little harder. And some of this other stuff we talked about, and I talked to Ryan and them about it this year, and I talked to the team about it this year. Some of the stuff we talked about, the family stuff, and all the lessons that we taught, because I always felt like, we're trying to raise men, not football players. But I did feel like after last year, there were some high expectations for us this year, and we were going to be better. And I found myself at one point saying, we've gotten away from what we do. Because now all of a sudden, because there's expectations for us to be good at football, we're trying to raise football players instead of men. And we had to kind of stop and go back and reset.
Coach, what advice, given you're around kids all the time, and as you said, the kids know what we teach them, what advice do you have for parents? And not about sports, but about raising kids.
Hold them accountable. That's the biggest thing I see today in kids that worries me is they don't have any accountability. Anytime they mess up at school or get in trouble, I remember, man, I was in the 7th grade and I said something smart to my 7th grade teacher, Mr. Neiman. And I went in the office and principal called my dad, said, John, and it's funny, that principal was my dad's principal too. So we lived in a small town. But said, Johnny, I got Michael in here. He said, such and such, Mr. Neiman, is it okay if I paddle him? Dad said, yes. So he paddled me. And then about 5 minutes later, my dad walks in, knocks on Mr. Mullen's door and says, I'm gonna need to borrow your office. And I got paddled again. And then my dad took me down to Mr. Neiman's class and I'm all red faced. And I was supposed to be the tough guy. Believe it or not, in 7th grade, I was the tallest guy in school. I just never grew another inch. But I had a beard in 7th grade too. So I'm supposed to be the tough guy. And I go down there and my dad's got me, dragging me down the hall and I'm crying and red faced. Made me go inside and apologize to the whole class and Mr. Neiman. And I realized today it didn't kill me, but I think it's just accountability. I think number one, it's accountability. Number two, it's being okay with them failing at something. Just let them fail. I'll hold them accountable when they do wrong. And you know what? It ain't just parents, it's school too. Our school system doesn't hold kids accountable. And I think a lot of that is stemmed from kind of what I was saying before, is because everybody wants to give the appearance of success. And sometimes because you don't have any discipline problems on paper, you're giving the appearance of success, but are you really successful? So.
Questions? Anybody else have questions?
I got another one. Coach, there's always sports, there's always tough times, there's always achievements, there's always losses. But I think there's also a lot of times where there's funny times or humor in sports. So is there a memory you have from a game, either you playing or coaching, that just makes you laugh when you think back to it?
Not necessarily in a game, but I can't believe Tyler Wright's here. So again, our program is about more than football. And I've told them this, and I tell the kids this every year, you're not gonna remember games. You don't remember, I won't remember games. My Monday morning, Ryan will ask me about something in the game, I don't remember. You remember practices, you remember fun things you did. Every year we take a camping trip. So I take them out in the woods, and I started because I figured these Dunwoody kids are so daggone privileged to go to sleepaway camp and sleep in condos basically. So I figured I'm gonna take them out in the woods, and we always take them to Heart Lake Creek State Park. It's literally Camp Daniel Morgan. And if you're familiar with Friday the 13th, it is literally where Camp Crystal Lake was filmed. And nothing's changed. It's that old and it's dirty and nasty. But one year we couldn't go there because they were doing something else. I can't remember if they were filming another horror movie or something. So I went to this other place, which we didn't know was called Two Wheels of Suches. Jay's been there, I know, Matt's been there, but it is a motorcycle campground. Like all the dudes are riding up on Harleys. And I remember we pulled up and this old man came out and we had 2 buses full of teenage boys. And this old man, the campground guy, comes out and he's like, I'm not even talking to y'all. You talk to her. I would have never rented this to y'all. By the end of the weekend, the guy loved us. So the second to last day, we're sleeping in tents. And coaches had little shacks, you know. But all the kids are sleeping in tents down by the creek. They're catching crawdads, stuff they've never done before, you know. So the old man that hated us to begin with comes down and says, hey, just in case you want to, man. He said, if you go to the back of the property and you walk out the red gate, there's a waterfall down there. You walk about a half mile down in the woods and you find a waterfall. So we go and I told Brant Smith and Jake Hill they were going to be the end of the line and I was the front of the line so that we don't lose anybody, right? Because we walked through the woods with 60 kids. We get back and I get to the gate and we start counting because when we come back, we never could find a waterfall. But when we come back, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 61 kids. Well, there was only 58. We've lost 3 kids somewhere. I can't remember exactly. I know it was Walt Anders. Who else was it? Was it Braden Cole?
Maybe,
And then a freshman, I can't remember.
yeah.
But anyway, there's 3 kids missing. Well, I start panicking. I mean, I'm panicking. Because now I figured out it's Walt Anders and Braden Cole. And I'm thinking, I am not calling Julie Cole and Audra Anders saying I lost your kid. So I'm running through the woods, man. And I was 80 pounds heavier than I am now. I was running through the woods about to die, trying to find them. Well, I'm a genius. I'm all this team building stuff. So every time we go camping, I take their phones away. So they don't have a phone either. So I'm running through the woods and I can't find them. And I finally find them. And I bring them back and I get in your tent, don't freaking move. So I'm trying to remember. Oh, then the storm breaks out. Huge storm, and everybody's in their tents. And I'm looking out the window, and remember, Walt Anders was one of them. And at this point, Walt's like destroyed. I ripped into him. I was wrong for how hard I went, but I was scared, man. I mean, honestly, I didn't want to call them moms and tell them I lost a kid. But I see Walt running through the field towards my cabin. And I see him come back, and I'm like, what in the world is he doing? The day before, or that morning, at some point, Walt had found a dead fish or caught a fish in the creek, and he had put it underneath my cabin so that it would smell really bad. And it did. It smelled horrible. Horrible. I had no idea why. And they were all giggling and laughing because I guess, but now that Walt was in trouble, Walt ran over there and took it back out. But Walt and I and Tyler stole my truck one time because I left my keys in the truck and hid it. So then I went and stole Walt's car and put it behind Kroger. So, but I mean, we had fun. That group was fun. So. Anything else?
What's the next thing you want to do for the Dunwoody property, and what's your big dream for?
I want there to be a stadium finished. We have visitors bleachers, we have lights, we got track, we got field, we got stores, we got school board. We got a big billboard we signed self signage on, and we want to build our home side bleachers and about the press box concession. I mean, that's the dream. Honestly, if we ever got it done, I might resign. I don't know, we never do anything.
I live in Sandy Springs, so this might be a
Yes, sir.
dumb question, but you still don't play home games there, do you?
No, sir.
I mean, you never did, right?
Well, let me take it back. Varsity football, no. Every other thing we do. We play our JV home games there, soccer, lacrosse, girls flag football. But we play our home games for varsity football in North Dakota.
So the Chamblee game on the 25th, that's in North
That's
Dakota?
in North Dakota. Now, I will say this. As of now, our last game next year will be at Dunwoody High School. They had a scheduling conflict and they had too many too many games, not enough stadiums, and they called and asked if I want to do it at home, I said yes. So that'd be pretty cool. We play our scrimmages there too. Any scrimmages we have, we play there. It's an awesome atmosphere. It's fun. All the people walking from the neighborhoods. It's pretty cool. Anybody got anything else? Don't want it back.
Andy, could I take a moment? Thank you. This is just a spontaneous, timely event that I thought I'd bring to your attention. My name is Rick Carr. This is my first time of being here. I've been in church here for 20 years, and I've ushered with Andy for 20 years, and know most of you fellows. But I clicked on my phone a minute ago. It was ringing from my dentist's appointment office, so I thought I'd better see what they want to say. And as I turned it on, I caught the path of the hurricane heading towards Florida. And I have an old and best friend that has lived on Cedar Key for 25 years. 3 weeks ago, they got pretty well wiped out for the first time in 20 years by the hurricane that occurred then. And I mean, wiped out, they've lost half their commercial buildings. If you ever been there, it's like going back to the 20s. And they've lost half of the houses. It's been a real disaster. As I looked, that storm is heading right straight back towards Cedar Keys on kind of the north end of that thing. So I just ask you fellows and fellow Christians just to maybe say a little prayer for the people of Central Florida, because they're really in for a very difficult time, just like the North Carolinians. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anybody else got questions for Coach Nash?
Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it.
You talking about your 1 year of college football going 0-12, you said? My high school football career was 1-21. So yeah, I know the feeling on that one. But a lot of
Is that
huh?
Did you tech this year? Is that?
Wow. Wow, Phil.
And look at you.
I was doing transit math the other day, right? So we lost to Vanderbilt by 1 point and they beat Alabama. So transitively, we beat Alabama. I think anyways.
A lot of math.
That was what?
USC math.
USC math, yeah. It works the same way, right? Anyways, everybody, thanks again for being here this morning. Like I said, there are the sign-up sheets on the table. We'd love to get you more plugged in. Please leave us your name and email address so that we can get in touch with you and hopefully find other ways to get you plugged in here at the church. I don't really have any other closing announcements. Love to see you here normally on Tuesday mornings if you can make it. Otherwise, we'll like I said, we'll try to find another way to get you plugged in. I'm gonna hand it over to Mr. Drexler here to close us out.
Empty your plates.
Yes,
Yeah.
when we're done, if you would help bust the tables, we've got a blue card over here on the side, silver and the plates. And thank you all very much for coming. It is great to connect with y'all. If you are not regulars here, please again, as Brian said, connect with us again in some way. There's lots of ways to connect. So Coach Nash, on behalf of the Men's Ministry Advisory Board, thank you for being here. We appreciate your work. We appreciate you being in the community with us. So let's say a prayer. Lord God, we are mindful of the people who are affected by the hurricanes and natural disasters. Lord God, we know that there are people who are suffering all over the world from natural disasters, from other problems. Lord God, be with us. Have mercy on us. Show us that it's character and walking with you, that you walk with us through the storm. Lord God, thank you for your servant, Coach Nash. The way he builds young men, the way he builds this community, the way he does it around football. Lord God, we know that your hand is on him and in his work. Lord God, help us be faithful stewards. Thank you for the food this morning, and help us be disciples in the community as we go forward from this place. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, that's Friday.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
I got it.
Thank you for being here. Glad you're
I don't.
Gary, you been coaching?
First came in. Oh, good. Yeah. You talked about, I worked in high school for a year.
Yeah. That's great.
Right here. Won't change.
A little bit.
Yeah, I was started out on the poor side of town where poor white dudes.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I bet. I bet. He's probably got quite a mix of kids. I bet he does.
But, I still.
There you go. I don't believe that, but
No, I was a bad athlete. I was little and slow.
But anyway, yeah, he said.
Three boys and then. Public speaker. I did a couple of things with him. I'm on his life. Still have, because Kevin is his birthday. He doesn't trip to New York. Goes to business. And he goes to Florida leadership. So, it's just, it's gone 1,000 kids are more. It's probably the most meaningful thing they do. Because of school, you get out of school, you don't really know what your business is. So, what would you so I met him because I went to Georgia. That was he goes to Connecticut. Down here. Our marketing guy is up there and pension people. And so we got business. And Steve was in the treasury department. And he came home. So Steve comes home one day to his mother and says, I'm either going to preach or teach. And he takes the choice. Goes to Dunwoody, gets up there and he's a famous guy. His mother was here. That's good. Well, I don't know why. What's going on in Dunwoody, this idea of getting football here in the stadium, in school, she was in on that, we paid for the drawing. We were here to get that stadium. Go Vogel. Nice to meet you. So glad you fits right in the mold. Thank you. High quality. That's how stuff is confident. Take a lot of.
I mean, it's just, number one, I think. Inherently playing football. You're miserable. He's up at 6:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, out, I'm not playing that. August. But we have to talk about that, in January. But then in the season, we use it too, halftime of the night. It's all about the. And also, step it up to 10. Step it up. Don't have a. It's just, I just think it's, that's the world we live in. I'm surprised at everything they do. I think I was very fortunate in the way my football career went. I had phenomenal coaching in high school and college. I got to see what you want to do.
I dream of having a stadium at the school. Dream of having a stadium was when my son was 35 years old. So my wife paid for it. Just to tear it out. It sounds like
I got there. Sinkholes on the field. We just all in a sinkhole, broke his leg. The track was destroyed, no lights. Now you go down there and but all that old gravel stuff that was in the football baseball field, that's all concreted now. A nice black fence around the track, brand new red track.
There was a snack bar, wooden building.
Yeah. Yeah, the set box, it's still there. What we want is you can tear it down, put the bathroom. Yeah. Serve both. But the lights are incredible.
Well, that was one of the things that the neighbors were having a problem with, but now the way the light.
There's no light. It's a, you see outside. It's pitch black outside. We're gonna have one there next year. We don't have. We're looking at about 1.2.
I didn't know if that campaign was still going.
It is. It's just in a different way now. It's not that. It's not the game over. Thank you guys. Appreciate y'all having me. Right.
definitely do it from here. I come back to America. I did sound good. Good, sir. Appreciate y'all having me. Sure. Oh, no, no, Sorry.